What is going on, YouTube? In today's video, I'm interviewing a 23-year-old who is buying his first income property. Now, he bought this property specifically to Airbnb the property, and he's going to rent hack it. He's living in one unit. I'm going to ask him a series of questions regarding the process that it took to start to actually purchase a home as an investment property and to get started with Airbnb that way. You guys all know I talk about rental arbitrage a lot on this channel. This is one of my good friends. He's actually purchasing the property, so it'll give you guys a little bit of insight on different ways to get started. At the end of the day, the moral of the story is that it doesn't matter what you do, just get started because it'll be to your benefit. So without further ado, I'm going to introduce Serge Lupescu. I'm going to let him introduce himself, talk about himself for a little bit, just so you guys get to know him a little bit more. I'll be linking his channel in the description down below, and you guys are more than welcome to check it out. He talks about assisted living because that is currently his business venture. He's had massive success with that, and I think it's really cool that I'm able to introduce him to you guys and let you guys know a little bit more about him.
What's up, guys? So my name is Serge, as Robert mentioned, and I do talk a lot about assisted living, and I do talk a lot about just real estate in general. The opportunity kind of presented itself where I could actually afford to purchase my first investment property, and Robert's got some questions lined up for me, and so I'm gonna let him go ahead and ask me a couple questions, and hopefully this gives you guys some insight if you guys are looking to purchase any property to do this business model out of, or just to do the traditional long-term rental.
All right, so Serge, what has the process of you finding a property for Airbnb been like? Because I know when you look for property, traditionally you have to look for a few things. You have to look for the cap rate, and there's certain aspects of real estate investing that go into searching for a property for the traditional form of real estate income. But for the Airbnb side of it, like, what have you done specifically, and like, how has that been for you?
So for me personally, I had to make sure I was looking for something that I actually needed in my current situation that I'm in right now. So I stopped paying rent at an apartment as of January of this year. So I stopped paying rent, and I decided to just live at the business that I currently have and just save my money and just build my credit and keep my living expenses really low. So I didn't have any type of living expenses. I just had my personal expenses. Once I got pre-approved, it was just a matter of finding a house with a guest house or something similar to that within the price range that I was pre-approved for. So this all took probably from the meeting of the realtor and him doing his initial assessment of what I was needing and wanting, and then meeting with the lender and getting pre-approved took probably about a week, give or take. Okay. So once we got that all set up, the process of finding the property was quite a hassle, to be honest, because I first started out just in an area that I wanted, which was closer to my business. But then when I had to factor in that I wanted to do Airbnb, I had to make sure that that area met all the criterias, right? Mm-hmm. Which we will talk about here in a little bit. And so when that happened, I couldn't find anything. There was nothing within my price range, and it was also not in a good area to do any type of short-term or long-term rentals. And with that being said, I had to widen where I was actually going to purchase a home. So I had to go even further out from what I was initially wanting to do. And when I started doing that, I was finding a couple of properties. But the thing was that the guest house would either not have a kitchen, or it wouldn't have a functioning bathroom, or it didn't have either, but it was still just a decent looking little loft, as you would say. It had a closet and just a place for a bed, which I'm very self-sacrificing. I didn't necessarily need a full-on kitchen or a full-on bathroom. It would be nice. When you guys are looking for a property, don't settle for the very first property that you see. Don't settle, and don't, I would say don't just like go in and be set on one property and hoping that it goes your way. Just know that there's constantly properties being sold and being bought. And then the last thing I did when I realized, oh wow, I can't find anything within my price range, I can't find anything in the areas that I wanted, what if I just increased the search, the price that I was looking for, just increase it a little bit by like 15,000 and see what comes up. Because I knew that if I could negotiate the price down, I would get it in my price range. And that's exactly what I did. So when I increased the price range of what I was looking for by 15,000, I actually found the property that I was looking for.
It sounds like there was a lot that went into the process of actually finding this property, right? Because you said that when you ended up finding a home that you liked, it wasn't in the right location, which is really important for short-term rentals. Guys, I'm going to be out there in Phoenix very soon helping Serge with his listing, and that's something that's going to be coming up soon. We're going to be filming some content for you guys there. So that brings me to my next point of like what specifically you looked for as far as the bedroom sizing. I know there's a lot of things to consider when you look for a short-term rental, right? Like the size really matters because depending on the amount of guests you can sleep, right, you know, that affects the amount of money you're going to make with this business model. So like, was there anything specifically you looked for in the place that you ended up choosing?
So for me specifically, I wanted to find a home that would fit more beds because that equals to more heads, right? So if you're able to put that in your home and go from there, that's what I was looking for. I was looking for a 3-bedroom, 2-bath type of home, right? Just a single family home that would fit a family comfortably, or just a group of friends getting together. And the place that I ended up choosing is actually around a lot of colleges. It's around hospitals. It's right there by the airport. It's central Phoenix is where it's at. And so for me, that meant a lot when it came to purchasing the right property, because I didn't want to get something that was too small, that would only accommodate, one person or 2 person. Yeah. And so for me, I wanted to make sure I got like a single family home that people would feel comfortable staying in. And then not only that, but when I do eventually move out from the separate area that I'll be living in, which is actually attached to the house, but it's got its separate entrance. And like Robert mentioned, he will be coming out to Phoenix, and we will be doing a full tour video of the entire home, furnished and everything. So you guys will see what I'm talking about when I do. But when I do move out, I can make that a separate listing on its own. Yeah,
so you mentioned that there is a guest house, and that's something that I want to address for a lot of you guys who are maybe looking to buy a property for short-term rental. I love the fact that you have a guest house attached to your main house. That's a really good move moving forward. I recommend you guys look for something like that if you are deciding, whether or not you should purchase a property for Airbnb specifically. Having that additional unit, having that additional, attachment to the property is very good moving forward. So my next question to you is, what is your plan with the Airbnb business now that you're getting started with it? Like, what do you want to do with it, in the future, in the near future?
Yeah, so my whole plan is to just expand just like anybody else, right? It's a very scalable business, as is assisted living, and having different sources of income that you can actually scale, and it's just not stagnant, right? You don't want something where you can't scale. And personally, for me, this is the perfect opportunity not only to get into more real estate, but to also be part of a solid business plan overall. And people are constantly traveling. It also it provides a need for me to live, right? I'm not going to be living at the property anymore. And so once I move out of there, I'm just going to scale it, put that listing up on there, and then continue doing what I'm doing. I want to get into all kinds of different real estate. I don't want to just stick to single family or multifamily. I want to get, continue building on my portfolio, whether it's short-term rentals, long-term rentals, student housing.
Always have a scaling mindset, and that's why this opportunity is so amazing, because you're able to scale it to whatever you want, right? If you just want to add additional income to your household income with one listing, that's great. If you want to replace your full-time income like forever and just scale this to a massive real estate empire and build it up, you have that option as well. So Serge, I know you're going to crush it with this. Thanks, and I'm so excited that you're getting started with it, because a lot of people sit on the sidelines, they're not ready to make a big change like this in their life. So seeing you actually, you've watched my success, you've seen my numbers, you've seen what I've done with my listing, my current listing. So seeing that, and you made the right choice. I definitely think that you're going to do well with it.
Sure.
And guys, like I said, he lives in Phoenix. That's an amazing market. Let me ask you a little bit more of a technical question. What market analysis did you do on your own to get this property, right? Like before you made the initial offer, before you dedicated yourself to this property, how did you know, did you do any market analysis that would have helped you decide?
Most definitely. So I implemented a lot of Robert's strategies on what to look for when you're looking for a property to do, even rental arbitrage or even purchasing, right? So for me personally, it was a matter of looking at other listings. Once I did see a property that I wanted to look at, first I wanted to see what was in that area, and also what the listings were like in that area, and what the nightly rates were going in that area. He does mention AirDNA. I did use that for a period of time. It's expensive, but it's definitely worth it when you're about to purchase a property, specifically to do something like this. Another thing I also looked at was the neighborhood. That is such a key thing, guys. It is important to see what other listings are around, but then also what that neighborhood is doing long term. Long term, I want to make sure that my property is going to appreciate in value. I want to make sure that other properties around it aren't going to actually bring the value of my home down. And I also wanted to make sure that this is somewhere that people are actually going to want to come stay.
Obviously.
For instance, an example was that I remember calling Robert about this property I was looking at, and it's good to make all kinds of visits during different times of the day, even like during the weekend and stuff. For instance, I went like a Friday night to the property that I'm currently buying, and then this other property I was looking at, and the other property that I was looking at, there was prostitution going on literally down the road. Insane. So that instantly I was like, nope, I'm not buying the property, and I'm not going to do anything around this area because no one's going to want to be in an area where there's prostitution going on literally down the road. So that not only was the market analysis, but then I wanted to look at the occupancy rate just in general there in that area, and just making sure that it was above over there in that area. It's 80%. So that's really, really good. And for me personally, that really stood out. And then also the neighborhood is really quiet, really nice. And overall, it made complete sense to do that.
One thing he mentioned was AirDNA. Like, I've heard of people saying that it's not the most accurate tool. I think it's within a 5% ballpark. Like, the numbers aren't always going to be that reliable, but for me, in my experience, it's always been within like a 5% price difference of what it's saying that the property generates versus what it's actually generating. There's definitely a way to do free market research, and if you guys can spend a little bit more time digging deeper into the listings, you'll be able to see what the host is charging and what their cleaning fee is. Add their occupancy into the equation. That gives you an idea of what they're doing as far as revenue.
It's a good baseline to go off of, but don't become so dependent on these third-party things to ultimately make that sound decision. Dig a little deeper, do some more free market analysis and everything, and then if possible, try to talk to other hosts in that area.
Yeah, that's a great idea. Getting in contact with multiple hosts or people who are actually doing it. And this doesn't necessarily have to be like a way of you being rude and asking them, just join a Facebook group, that sort of thing. There's a lot of free help out there. There's a lot of information that people will be more than willing to help you with. So that's honestly something that, it's a great suggestion. So guys, so far we learned that Serge did his own market analysis for this property. He definitely looked into the location because, guys, with short-term rentals, location is everything. Without a key location, you're not going to cash flow, you're not going to do the numbers that you want to do. So that is definitely something you can't overlook. And I can't stress it enough that location is by far the most important thing when it comes to Airbnb. I don't think saturation is an issue, and I've talked about this in the past. You're competing with hotels, and if you can see 6 massive hotels side by side at an intersection, by that interstate somewhere, then you could definitely picture in your mind that there's a market for Airbnb. There's a market for people traveling, and accommodation is just a massive booming industry. That's something I've come to learn, in my recent months experiencing the volume that I get with my own listing here. The population is 160,000. It's tiny. I've said it so many times before, and if it can work for me, it can work for any of you guys. So I'm excited to see Serge's numbers. They're going to crush it. I already know that his numbers are going to be really solid. I'm excited to see him add that to his revenue stream. So he's building multiple income streams. I'm building multiple income streams, as you all know. From a 21-year-old looking on to a 23-year-old, I think it's a great age to be, locking in a deal like this. So for him doing this, I think that's amazing. So my next question is, what is your opinion on a millennial or someone in the younger generation buying a home? Because I see articles all the time that say millennials are screwed. They're never going to recover financially. They have all these student loans. And Serge himself has quite a bit of student loans. He went to nursing school. So he's been there. He's done that. I dropped out of college because I saw him and I saw where he was financially after graduating, right? So I'm glad that he was there. I learned from his mistake. What do you think about millennials buying property?
I'm glad you're bringing this topic up because it definitely is controversial. And it's something that I actually was asked even, Serge, are you able to afford something like this? And I think that's a question each of you need to actually personally ask yourselves. But the thing is, if you go down the traditional route of paying your debts completely off, right, and then waiting 10 years for that to even happen, in that time frame of 10 years, if you would have purchased your property, like for instance, let's use myself as an example. If I wait 10 years, I'll be 33 years old. Now, if I purchase this property right now, which I am, the amount of equity that I will build up in the next 10 years is going to be significant, okay? Now I've built this wealth with owning this property, whereas if I wait is the equivalent of me paying my debt off for that time frame for 10 years. Does that make sense? So I would personally say not everyone's going to have the perfect scenario of having their debts completely paid off, because I don't have all my debts completely paid off. Okay, I still have a little bit of student loans left, and I still have my car loan. But with that being said, I'm still able to afford it. And you need to make sure you can actually budget your home loan into what your income is. And obviously, you'll have lenders who will make sure that you can afford it. They're not going to just give you a loan because you have a great credit score, right? If your debt to income ratio is too high, they're not going to give you a loan.
I talk about rental arbitrage all the time, and I think, buying a property, no matter what age you are, is by far the better option, because you're building equity, because you're building on an asset that can be forever yours. It could be your family, multi-generational. You could pass that down to your kids. And I think that's a very smart way to do it. And you could build equity and pull that equity line out to buy more property, buy more, income property. So in my opinion, I think anybody who is in a situation to where they're looking to buy a house as an asset, they should move forward with it. If they're looking to buy a house specifically, to live in it, that's no longer an asset, because what that does, that mortgage is coming out of your, like if you're budgeting and you're looking at money coming in versus money going out, that mortgage will be money going out if it's not bringing you any income. So what Serge is doing, he's rent hacking it. He's going to live in the guest house and Airbnb the main house, which, like he said, he's sacrificing himself. He's putting himself in a situation where he has a smaller unit, he has a studio, which, works perfectly for him. But if you're a married man, if you have kids, maybe that won't be the best situation for you.
Right.
So he's looking at it from an investment standpoint, and I think that's a very smart thing to do.
Now, what I would tell a lot of millennials, if they're purchasing that home as their first home to live in, they might have to really be cautious about that. Really take in consideration what your debts are, what your income is, and be realistic with yourself. Because at the end of the day, that is a huge expense if that's strictly what you're doing it for, to live in. Whereas for me personally, I would tell a lot of millennials, go actually look at it as a business. If you're gonna buy real estate and invest in real estate, I'm sure a lot of people are they may disagree with what I have to say, and may disagree with what we're having to say about millennials purchasing properties and getting into more debt, which is a whole nother topic on its own, which we're not going to get into. But if you guys just keep an open mind to what I'm having to say and what Robert and I are talking about, knowing that this property is going to generate income and generate revenue, and it's going to cover literally my mortgage and my utilities and some, that alone is what counts, right? And that property, it's paying for itself. That's why it's an asset. And like Robert said, it becomes a liability in a sense when you are actually paying out of pocket, and it's actually part of your expenses now, not the other way around. And that's why, as real estate investors, I'm sure a lot of them, we're still fairly new at this whole thing.
Just getting started.
We're just getting started, and we're not like necessarily the greatest investors. And I'm not saying just listen to us both and go implement exactly what we're doing. Go, like he said in the very beginning, just getting started is what matters. I'm just getting started in all of this, whether it's real estate investing, whether it's starting Airbnb. I want you guys to see exactly what Robert has to teach, and me being his best friend and everything, it kind of works out perfectly. And we both are the same like-minded people in that sense. If that's going to help you guys start, that's our whole goal of our channels, is to inspire you guys, because we were in the same position just as a lot of you guys probably are right now. We want to just give back with all the knowledge that we've received and all the experiences that we've had. And I can honestly say that I'm more excited to do this than probably my whole assisted living thing, because I was completely alone in that aspect. Nobody was really there to teach me. But in this aspect, I have Robert now, right? Robert's gone through quite a bit of situations, and he's got to hone down on exactly what works, what doesn't work.
I'll help Serge optimize his listing. I'll help him make sure he doesn't waste any time or money with certain things that he could be doing it. If you're going into it alone, there's a lot of little things that you could potentially be doing wrong, and I'm going to help him with that. We're two simple guys. We don't come for money. We're building our way up, and you guys can watch us do this, and that's what is exciting for us. Like he was saying, we're able to show you that doesn't matter where you're from, doesn't matter what your circumstances are, you are able to do this as long as you implement things that you learn, as long as you take action. That is the biggest thing that, you know, most people don't ever get that far because they never take action. So
Yeah.
the point of where I took action on getting my listing started, getting all this information that I've acquired through my process of learning how to be an Airbnb host, Serge, you know, he's about to implement a lot of these strategies. He's going to be learning a lot on his own, and this is an action move on his end, right? Going out there, finding this property, making sure he did all he could to do the right market analysis, do the right market research, to make sure he's going to get a good, solid listing, and that he could fall back on with traditional cash flow if it doesn't work with a short-term rental. Like, that was a bunch of work that he did on his own, and I'm sure he can share a lot more from where that came from on his channel, and he's going to. So guys, once again, thank you so much for staying tuned for this whole video. I hope it was very insightful. We touched up on a few things like what he looked for in buying a property for Airbnb. I've only talked about leasing the property out and, you know, listing on Airbnb, but to actually see him purchase the property, and, you know, I'll be learning from his mistakes when it comes time for me to buy the property. I'll have his experiences, and I'll have, you know, what he's gone through on the aspect of being a homeowner, dealing with all this. And so therefore, guys, I hope you guys enjoyed this video and found it very valuable. Be sure to leave a like and subscribe to both of our channels if you have not already. And we're both going to be talking more about short-term rentals. And he does talk a lot about assisted living on his channel, but he'll be throwing in an Airbnb video here and there.
Yeah.
And I think you guys will find that very valuable. You know, if you want to see what it's like if you buy a property for Airbnb, go check this guy's channel out because he is just getting started. If you guys have been keeping up with my videos, you guys know what is in the works right now. With all that being said, thank you all for staying tuned for this very lengthy video. I hope you guys found it valuable, and we will see you in the next one.